Hello again, and welcome back to Lucy Licorice Art. Today I'm going to be working on the first male ball jointed doll that I've ever printed, and also that I've actually had. It seems like it's a lot harder to come across low-cost male ball jointed dolls, so until now I've never really sought one out. This video isn't so informative as the other ones in that I'm just sort of experimenting and seeing where this doll takes me, since things tend to be a bit different when you're painting a masculine male doll. While I think I could probably do better in the future, I think this guy turned out pretty decent overall, though I definitely need to practice some short hairstyling. Be sure to check out the file for this doll in Thingiverse since it was free as well, and I'll leave a link in the description for that. Also, as a warning, this doll is anatomically correct and I did not censor it. You have been warned. And last but not least, my 3D printer is going, so if you hear a noise in the background, that's what it is. That said, let's just jump right into the video. First, I'm making sure I've printed all the parts that I need, since it can be kind of hard to keep track of with a doll like this. I'm checking them off as I go with a little doodle that I made that has all of the parts. Next, as usual, I take off the supports from the pieces, and I thought I would include some of the real-time footage of me removing this with audio, because it's actually quite satisfying hearing the popping noises it makes. Next, I sand down the biggest pieces and imperfections off of the parts. My printer has a lot of trouble with smaller pieces like hands, which is why you see me tend to sand those the most in my videos. After getting the larger bits, I always go back with sanding blocks and switch between grits to smooth out the surface so that it's not rough to the touch. I take particular time and care with the face since it will be seen most often and has the most detail. I managed to keep the film of dyeing the parts this time around, and I'm just placing them into the dye after rinsing them off and using tongs to roll the pieces around and keep them under the dye so that it dyes evenly. You don't really want it to touch the bottom of the pot or it might melt too much and become deformed and then not end up fitting with the other pieces. It just needs to be hot enough to soak in the dye at a low heat, and it does have to be synthetic dye or else it won't seep into the plastic. I also like to wipe them off as I pull them out so that it doesn't pool up in spots and make it dark and uneven in some areas. Once again, I make sure that I have all the pieces that I need, and sure enough, I ended up forgetting to dye one of the elbows, and I'll have to go back and dye that next time I make up a batch. So once again, I learned a lesson on materials that I can share with you. The wire that I used on Nova was too thin, and it was bending over time when I changed the hands and feet, so I got some new wire. However, this wire ended up being too thick and not malleable enough. I just wanted to keep this footage in to let you know that it's okay to fail and have to try again with something different. Just don't give up when it doesn't work out the first time. The wire was even too thick to fit through the joint to begin with, which should have been a red flag, but since I didn't want to go back to get a different type of wire, I started out just trying to make it work despite this. cutting at an angle to shove it through, and then using the Dremel to try to make the holes larger. But ultimately, it just wasn't going to work. It didn't bend properly since it's too thick and strong to bend on this small of a scale. After struggling, I finally just went back and got the next type of wire that was available. Even though it hasn't been cleaned and gets black everywhere, it's a smaller gauge and a bit more pliable while still being strong enough not to pull apart like the wire I tried on Nova was doing. Now I can actually make the joint hooks, bending them to fit the curve and then using round nose pliers to make a smaller hook that will actually go through the elastic. Don't forget to make sure and check if the hooks fit into the joint holes as you go. Now, to be perfectly honest, stringing the doll is my least favorite part. You just have to be really patient and make sure that you have the right parts on the right sides as you go to avoid redoing anything too many times. I find I have to string the arms and legs both at least once since it's hard to gauge how tight or loose the elastic should be the first time around. I like to lay out the pieces and have it be half as long as the length of the arm typically for the elastic. I use the ribbon to help feed and pull the elastic through, and sometimes making a wire hook also helps. This is about the point where I realized that for the hollow joints in the legs, I'm going to need a hook to pull the ribbon through since it bends on the other side and it's just not going to work. So I use my thick wire to bend a hook on the long piece and tie the ribbon in a knot so that I can hook it through to the other side. After testing the doll, I think that the legs could be a little bit tighter and it would help to hot glue the joints like I've done before, but for the sake of time and experimentation, I just moved on to the next part for this doll. As usual, if you'd like to know more about the supplies I'm using, just leave a comment below. I just use an eraser to take away material when I've added too much, and work with a Movavi makeup palette and brushes and some watercolor pencils. For this repaint, it's going to be a little bit different than usual since I'm going for a more masculine character. There isn't going to be a whole lot of makeup, so it's mostly just adding blush for a more natural color and accentuating the eyes, lips, and other features. I'm also using pretty neutral colors overall. So I plan on making a more detailed video of making wigs in the future, but I have to figure out a way to get a good angle so that you can see better what I'm doing if I was to show the process from start to finish. As usual, I'm just using saran wrap as a base and using hot glue to glue on the wefts of hair bit by bit. I'm also using yarn hair for this doll, partly because I didn't have a dark alpaca hair and I already had this made, and also because I thought black hair might suit him pretty well to fit my tough aesthetic here. It also tends to stick out a bit more and hold its shape, which I hoped would help me to style it since I do struggle with short male hairdos. Sometimes it seems like you need to be a hairstylist, makeup artist, seamstress, and a whole load of other things when you're a ball-jointed doll artist. Once I let the glue set, I brush out any hair that didn't get stuck down, and then I can remove the wig gently. Once I get past the head cap, I can just remove it and take the cap out pretty easily. Now I can trim off the extra saran wrap as close to the head as I can without cutting into the hair so that it won't be seen, especially since I'm planning on doing a shorter hairstyle. I learned that in the future for guys' wigs, I might try packing the hair in closer so that when it's cut short the plastic doesn't show as much underneath. Trimming the wig to look natural was definitely a challenge, but I was just feathering it as I went and doing my best to go for an anime-ish hairstyle, or at least something somewhat emo or fluffy. I think it turned out a little bit like Willy Wonka, but I did do a little bit more trimming later on. I think, or I hope, it's a passable first attempt. Here I'm putting in the eyes with some glue dots, but I think in the future I might make him some more eyes with a lot smaller irises and pupils, since these just don't seem to fit him, at least for the look that I had in mind with his more masculine characteristics. So the whole last part of this video is me giving this doll some cool tattoos. I love giving dolls tattoos since it tends to give them a lot of character and detail, and it's fun to come up with the sorts of things that they might have as a person or sketch out tattoos that you might want to have yourself someday. To finish it all off, I gave him a bit of facial hair and some sideburns. I did also make him some pants off screen since I was messing with the pattern and I haven't made male doll clothing before, so it wasn't too exciting to watch. I'll make him some more clothes in the future hopefully, but I wanted to post again this week and I was running out of time. I also haven't named him yet, so if you have any ideas, feel free to leave some suggestions in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this process of me messing around with my first male doll repaint, and I've already got another doll printed and ready to start on for next week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.